at the time for your panel sessions. At the time I was the only girl wearing a baya and scarf in that event, and even in hem Borka session of making of Madras questions about hijab and other stuff. So it was after that event, your panel was there after that session. So when I saw you on the stage, I was really happy. Okay, finally, whatever questions were asked, being in Hamburger's session about hijab and all, you could answer them all just by sitting on the stage. And I was really glad to see you there. And since then, it has been my wish for you to call here in a book club event and have you speak. So yes, this is dream come true that you're here with us speaking. So yes, we are glad to hear more from you. And Rashmi shall take up all the question, whatever conversation is going to be
Sure.
That was my part of that's a very limited introduction and very informal one.
No, I'm very
just
happy
trying
with
to
that.
show my
I'm tired of
excitement and
listening to the usual introductions that I keep getting. So this was very nice.
I mean, you could answer all those questions which were being asked in that session while I was the only girl there about hijab, and sadly that the day was also about verdict of Babi Masjid and Triple Talaq,
That
all those
happened
issues
this
were going
Saturday.
on.
Yeah.
Yes. You could answer them all just by being on the stage panel in your hijab, abaya, confidently answering a whole lot of audience of an, I think 200 to 300, an audience of 200 to 300. You were able to just sit there and answer comfortably. That's the kind of confidence I would wish to have personally in my life, to be honest.
Inshallah, you will have.
Yeah. Rashmi, please continue.
Yeah. So little more introduction to ma'am. Hello, ma'am. I'm Rashmi. I'm the member of Kalaburagi Book Club,
Hi,
and
Rashmi.
hello, and I take privilege to introduce you all. Andaleeb Wajid is a Bangalore-based writer. She has written on diverse topics, right from food, culture to sci-fi and time travel. She started writing at very young age of 10 and decided to pursue writing as a career after school. She got married at very young age, that is at 19, but that didn't stop her from pursuing dreams.
Mhm.
Andaleeb Wajid has written 25 novels till now. In her early books, all of Wajid's characters were Muslim because it was the easiest way to write authentic stories. Now she is an expert in the craft and experiments with a wider range of characters. She supplements her income with creative writing workshops. Most of her books are characterized as romance novels or family sagas, but she's dabbled in young adult fiction, science fiction, and a relatively new love horror stories. This is a very small introduction to Andaleeb Wajid. Now, let us start with the QA session, ma'am.
Sure.
Okay. So, do you wish to share something before beginning the QA session, or do you want to read any excerpts from any one of your books?
I think reading kind of, takes off. It kind of makes everyone sleepy. So let's talk. And I'm happy to talk. So you've already talked about how you've got a lot of details about, when I got married and all that. So it's common knowledge. Yeah, I got married early, but I've always been interested in telling stories. And I think I used to tell stories to my classmates in school whenever we had a free period or before the teacher could come to our class. And our classroom was situated quite far from everyone else's. So, so every time, by the time the teachers would leave the main building and come to our class, there would be some 10 minutes. So in those 10 minutes, I would come out and talk and tell them a story of a movie, usually a horror movie I had seen. Not really scary movies, but I started making up stories to keep everyone enthralled.
Okay.
So it started like that, started telling stories, started writing fiction, but I didn't take it very seriously. I didn't think that this was a career, because when you, so I am child of the 80s. You people were not born then. So in those days, the career options were very limited. People almost always just thought of, when you thought of career, it was always either doctor, engineer, not even lawyer. Doctor, engineer were the two things that we heard of. And so,
Yeah.
you never really thought that writing could become a career. today options are much more. I'm no doctor and engineer are still the most desired for vocations, but there is so much more there is so much more choice available for youngsters today. So I didn't really think about writing as a career for myself. I was just doing this as something that um, it was just a way of expression. It was just all this thing that was inside me. I was just expressing it. And I kind of kept on doing it and eventually kept getting good at it. And it took me a while to get published. And after that, started getting noticed by people and started getting noticed by publishers. Because I think if you write one book and then you just wait for it to become big, to become popular, and then that doesn't happen and you give up and you just go on doing something else, I think that's what happens to a lot of people. But so that writing bug had bitten me. So when my first book was published, and I kind of saw reviews in the paper, and people who read it and got back to me. So I just wanted to relive this all over again and again. So I just started writing seriously writing in 2009. And when my first book came out, and since then I've been writing very diligently. I consider writing as my as a full-time job. So even if no one is paying me to do this, I sit down very diligently. I sit down and write, and this much time is for my writing, this much is for other work. So that's the kind of stuff that I so for me, writing has just become it went on to become my career purely by coincidence. I really didn't think that I could do this, but I remember entering. So I got married early, so I had my son also very early, my older son. I was only 20 when he was born. So at that time, no, I was 21. Yeah, I turned 21, and he was born. And I remember sending off a short story to a competition, because even after, so my mother and I have always been at loggerheads about the kind of person I should be, the kind of mother I should be. But I've always been this, all this is on one side, and my writing and my what I want to do is on the other side. So despite being a very young new mother, my baby was just he was just 1 month old, 2 months old, I think. I entered into a short story competition, and I got a call from them saying that maybe you've won. Why don't you come for the prize distribution thing? So I went for that. My son was so small, and he was a problem child, in the sense he was not well when he was born. So my mother sat in the car holding him while my husband and I went to go see what's happened. And I realized that I won the first prize. It was a very small competition. It was very, but what happened was that I met a couple of people there who helped me, who moved forward. I met this, I'm sure you would have heard of the cartoonist Ponnappa. You haven't heard of Ponnappa? He's a very famous Karnataka-based artist, comic. He does cartoons for newspapers and illustrations. So he was one of the judges, and another lady, she was one of the judges, Rahmat Merchant. So she kind of took me under her wing. She kind of helped me, read more authors more Indian authors. So this was at a time when the world was just people now, Indian authors, there are so many Indian authors, they're literally creeping out of the woodwork everywhere. I'm talking about the early 2000s, when no one really knew of Indian authors until Jhumpa Lahiri won the prize for her book The Interpreter of Maladies. Until then, no one had really heard of Indian authors, but she made me read all these books and kind of expanded my education. So, it's been a process that started then, but it's taken so long for it to pay off now.
Okay. There is one short note to viewers. If you have any questions, you can put in the chat box. Later, we will take those questions also. So there is a next question, ma'am. Your journey of writing 25 books in this 10 years, what are the challenges that you have faced, and how did you overcome all those challenges? Do you wish to share with us
Of
something?
course. So I have to clarify that of the 25 books, the last seven, I think, have been self-published on Amazon, which means that I have put it up myself. I have self-published it as ebooks. The others have been published with all renowned publishers like Penguin, Rupa, Hachette, Bloomsbury. The challenge is not so much in writing them, because I am a very fast writer. When I get an idea, I fix on it, I fixate on it, and then I sit down and I work on it and I write. The challenge is getting a publisher interested in it, trying for them to make them see the potential in it, that readers would like to see this. This was my initially, in fact, this was the for my first book. This was a challenge that was really predominant for me, that I could not get anyone to read what my first book was about. No one really seemed to want to read the story of a young Muslim girl growing up in Bangalore like I had. So it took time. And so now, of course, the situation is different. Now publishers know who I am, so they are willing to take books that I write. So the journey more or less has been one of, I would say, what I've learned is relentless hard work, and not giving up, and but also having a goal in mind, that this is what I want to do, so I want to achieve it. And I moved to self-publishing last year. I still have books coming out with traditional publishers also. I moved to self-publishing last year because I felt that I write faster than my publishers can bring out my books. So it just seemed like, for my readers, it seemed like they were very happy. My readers were very happy that I was bringing out books faster. That was the only reason. So that it's like any other career, ups and downs. I still get my books still get rejected from a publisher who feels that it does not fit their portfolio. So yeah, that's about it.
So you consider yourself as a hybrid author because you publish
Yes,
in both the ways.
yes.
Which, according to you, which might be the easiest one to publish?
Self-publishing, it's easier. So you're in control of everything, right? You can. In fact, I am actually planning to bring out a short non-fiction book, sort of a how-to book. Um, what happened? Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah.
I think she left the meeting.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think something happened, and by mistake I pressed the red thing, so it got disconnected.
Yeah, it's
So
fine.
yeah, self-publishing is very easy. I'm in fact planning to bring out a book which explains how you can self-publish your own book in less than 3 hours. So it takes
Oh,
literally that long to set up a book. So, once, of course, you have to have written the book first. If you've written the book, if you've edited it, then you can publish it in like 3 to 5 hours. So self-publishing, so each has its merits. When you publish traditionally with a publisher, a renowned publisher, your book get reviewed in magazines and newspapers. People, do profile pieces on you. They talk to you. When you self-publish, it's to a slightly more limited audience, because these are people who have to have become accustomed to the idea of reading only ebooks. So we still have a small majority. Sorry, it's a smaller number of people who are willing to read a book entirely just on ebooks. So people also have this misconception that if you have to read a book which they have bought on Amazon, if it's an ebook, then they have to have a Kindle. You don't need a Kindle. You just need the
yeah.
Kindle app on your phone and you can read. So those are some of the misconceptions, but definitely self-publishing is far more easier right now at this point because of the pandemic. Traditional publishers aren't even taking new books. So the books which are supposed to come out, my book was supposed to come out this year, it's been pushed to next year. So, so a lot of books which are due this year has been pushed to next year. So what happened is that if I were to send a book now, it's going to get published in 2022. So if I, so you have to wait that long, or you can. So it also depends on the book that I'm writing. If I feel that this book has a better shot, a better, a traditional publisher will do a better job, then I will wait. It's worth the wait to make the book better, and so I definitely like, if you're looking for fast publishing, then it's self-publishing.
Okay, that was insightful. I have one more question, like how do you write a novel? Right from deciding the name to writing the characters, building, ending the chapter or ending the whole story. How do you come to that conclusion that this will end my book, this will end my story? After writing, don't you find like I have missed something, I might have added something, like don't you find such
So
thoughts?
10 years ka experience in 1 minute, I have to say. No, it's not like that. It's, as you keep writing, you become used to it. You get to understand certain things. You
Yeah.
understand how plot works. You understand how characters work. So what happens is that the process becomes more streamlined. You're able to understand that this is a high point in the novel, this is a low point, and this is what needs to put it, what I need to put it together. So what I really like to do is when I get an idea, I sit down, especially if I'm self-publishing it, I sit down with a notebook, I make notes, I come up with the characters, with the side characters, because what happens is that when you're self-publishing, readers want to know what's happening to your characters even after the book is over.
Yeah.
So I could bring them back in subsequent books because the side characters in this book become the main characters in the next book. So it's like an overall plan that you make and build and devise. So a lot of planning goes into this. So I just don't sit down at my laptop one day and say I'm going to write a book. Before I do that, I have to come up with plans. I have to come up with character list, understanding the character, their motivations, what's the main force that's driving this person, and so those are the things. When you're asking how do you know when to end a chapter, I usually like to end a chapter at a place where I feel that the reader simply has to know more, so I cut it. So you end it when you are on a high. So when maybe something happened, like she opened the door and stood there shocked, but what is there behind the door? So for that, you move on to the next chapter so that the reader feels compelled to move to read the next chapter. If you give everything to them in that chapter itself, then they're like, okay, everything is fine so far. The hero, heroine, whatever it is, they seem to be all right. I can put the book away. I'll come back to them later, and they may never come back. So you leave the readers hanging at every other chapter, so that they're like, oh no, what happened now? Oh no, why did this? Like so those so you try not you can't always have cliffhangers at the end of every chapter, but try to maintain that pace so that so to maintain that pace, I prefer writing shorter chapters because it feels like to the reader the book tends to go faster if the chapters are shorter.
Okay. Um, like, how do you write the character, ma'am? Do you write the characters so that it influences someone else, or you just keep them as they are?
No, as they are, I didn't understand that.
Like, you write the characters so that it could influence someone or it can motivate someone.
Oh,
Do
you
you
mean
write
you
the
mean to say readers?
Yeah, for the readers.
Okay. No, no. I am rarely thinking of the readers when I'm writing, The only time I'm thinking of the readers is that, okay, I don't want them to stop reading. I want them to finish this book. I want them to be able to not leave this book. So the characters are, for me, they are proper people in their own right with their, um, likes, dislikes, things they love, things they hate. So they are proper people, So with that, so I make sure that I've got these people as I make them as real as possible with flaws. So they're not perfect people. They're not like, they're not paragons of virtue. It's not like, one of my heroines in one of my the recent novels, she she abuses everyone. It's like part of her character traits. She gets angry at the drop of a hat, and she just starts off. She just starts off. Sabko gali dena. So so it's like, but you meet such people. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. So when I'm writing a character, I try and make them as real as possible. I try and, I don't base them on anyone. I basically develop them from scratch. So this is this person. This is try and come up with a backstory for them. And this is why she is like this. This is the way she behaves in a certain way. Or, and I think earlier you had asked me how I named the books. I didn't answer
Yeah.
that. That's a very difficult thing for me. I find it very difficult to come up with the right name. So sometimes I've been lucky. I've come up with a good name. Sometimes the editors help. So when I'm self-publishing, I'm all on my own. I have to come up with a name all by myself. So that becomes very difficult. So I usually try and see if there is something in the book which I can take on. Sometimes I write the name. I usually avoid giving the name of the book before I write the book. So I write the book and
Okay.
see if there's something that I can take from here. Like my first novel, I had written it and I had no clue what to call it. I just didn't know what to call it. I went back and forth and nothing made sense. And then it started off on a terrace in a small town in Tamil Nadu called Vellore, which is where I come from. The book is set there. It started off there, and when it started, that the heroine and her cousins are standing over there on the terrace, and her cousin is flying a kite, and he gives her a very nice explanation
Okay.
about so she tells him what's the big deal about flying a kite. You just have to stand there and hold it over there. So he gives her, he's not an erudite person, he's not a sophisticated person, he's not even very educated, but in the beginning itself he explains to her that handling this kite is not so easy. You have to give it enough deal, sort of thing, and to also not let it fly away completely. And that kind of just occurred to me, and that's when I decided to name my first novel Kite Strings. So, the strings that
Yeah.
bind you, the strings that hold you down, the strings that also let you fly can also be the strings that let you fly. So that's the kind of, encapsulates the story of Kite Strings. So sometimes, you have to read the book again, your own book, to see that maybe there's something here that you've missed out on, and you can probably develop it and come up with a name. Sometimes it's much more easier than all this.
Okay. Okay. So, did you ever try to write the dark characters, man? While writing, so did you feel like I shouldn't write this because this is not making me to feel good?
Okay.
This usually happens to me while writing some poems on social issues and all. So that ever happens to you that made you to stop to write or something
No,
like that?
people. So, in my experience as a creative writing teacher in various schools, colleges, so whenever I've gone there and I've spoken about characters, I've asked people about characters and who their favorite character is. The children are more or less, initially, they'll be very, we like Percy Jackson, ma'am, we like Harry Potter. They'll start off like this. But the more I ask them, the more I get to know that everyone loves the bad guys. They love Joker. They love Voldemort. There are kids who love Voldemort. They're like, so
Hmm.
then there are kids who love, Darth Vader. And they'll be like, so the moment I start talking about villains, is everyone gets animated. They just
Hmm.
start getting very excited. So there is a lot of fascination with that characters, because for the way these characters have been built in popular culture is because there is a slightly redeeming factor to everyone except Voldemort. I refuse to believe he has any redeeming character. But all these characters have something redeeming about them. So the kids, I feel that the kids think that secretly these people are good. They are bad to show the world. So when I am writing a character, I don't do that. If my character is bad, then it's entirely bad. I haven't written that many bad characters, in the sense, they are more gray characters.
Okay.
Unless if you unless my horror novel House of Screams had a proper villain in it, so a proper bad character in it, who, again, she was also a victim of circumstance. So there isn't any bad character as such. uh, Interesting thing is that when I wrote my novel My Brother's Wedding, there was this character, um of the older sister, the heroine's older sister, who is this diva sort of person, who kind of, who everyone likes to hate, this sort of person, because she walks into the room and she expects everyone to look at her. And I had fun writing her, until my own siblings read that book and they say, but this is you basically written about yourself. I said, really? You people think I'm like her. I was like, yes, exactly, down right to the way you behave. You also can't drive. You also will go and end up killing some dogs if you try to drive. So, and so I was like horrified, but they were, of course, just pulling my leg. But it's an exaggerated thing. So I enjoy writing all sorts of characters. And I wouldn't say, I know what you're trying to ask, whether these characters and what they do, if I will be condoning them, if I will be saying that what they do is all right. So my job is to show what these people have done, whoever it is, and enough, I think, build the story enough so that my readers know the good from bad and know whom to root for.
Okay. So, ma'am, when I read your books, if I see from the beginning, you try to write the stories which are related to your family, right? Uh, if you're interested to write more on romance and food,
Hmm.
and now you're shifting to horror stories, sci-fi, time travel, there is a shift from what you like to write and what you want to write. So there is a shift between these two. So how did you overcome this challenge? Because when we write, usually we write what we like, what we are, we try to express that. But that shift from I have to express more than what I am, how did you do that? Like, what are the
So,
challenges you have faced in?
so what I like is also not a fixed thing. No? It also changes over time. So when I started off, also the science fiction, the time travel story was written 6 years ago, not now. It's not recent. The
Okay,
recent is horror, which
horror,
is
yeah.
very difficult to write actually, as I discovered, but I enjoyed it a lot. So it's very simple, So every time someone asks me, they ask, why did you move from writing romance to why are you writing horror? I just told them, because that's what happens. Romance, jane jane, it becomes horror only. That's what happens. So that's why I started writing that. But it's actually, to be very honest, I find it very. I like writing horror because it puts me in the driver's seat. So actually get scared very easily.
Okay,
I get scared very easily. So, but I will watch horror movies in broad daylight with my hand on the pause button, so that, something very scary comes, I will quickly pause, or I will read up the story beforehand. So that there are no surprises. So for someone like me, writing horror means that I am the one who's creating the scary thing. So that gives me a thrill. So I am basically just doing things which I enjoy. So that is not constant. No, it keeps changing. It's in flux. So sometimes I enjoy romance, sometimes I enjoy horror. So I try and write what I'm really feeling, excited by.
okay. So there is one question. It's about your personal life. Like being a female writer, it's not easy. And how did your family react to this, or how did your husband support to this idea of writing? And what were the challenges that you faced within or outside the society?
So,
Uh,
to be very honest, when I'm asked this question, I don't know what to answer, because I have not faced that. I haven't faced any challenges. I haven't faced
okay,
anything. I'm lucky. I'm not saying this is the case with everyone. So I am lucky, Alhamdulillah, because
okay,
I come from a very supporting family, and even from the time I was a child, everyone would be like, you know, I think they kind of, this just goes with my personality. of being an outspoken sort of person in the family. Like even when I was a child, when the elders were talking and kids were not allowed, or they would be discussing something, I would butt in and I would offer my opinion, and I would be kicked out from there, obviously. But so from the time I was a child, I've always been like this. So from no one in my family was surprised, and in fact, I started writing books. My books started getting published in 2009, but I have been writing fiction for much longer than that. I was writing a lot of short stories for, so Deccan Herald. You're aware of the paper Deccan Herald, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it used to come. There used to be a children's supplement called Open
Yes.
Sesame.
Yeah.
So, 1999 was when my son was born. So that was when my first story was published. So
Okay.
since then, I started, so in fact, I was so bored during my pregnancy. I wrote one short story and I sent it and I forgot all about it. So that short story for kids got published. And so I kind of got excited, even in the midst of all that craziness of being a new mother, I would try and take some time out and write one short story, send it off to Deccan Herald. So whenever my stories were published, people in a lot of families, everyone reads Deccan Herald. They would be like, "Oh, we opened the paper and we saw your name." Everyone's been happy. No one has had any problem with me, writing. It could also be that not that many. So even in the extended family, people have read now that they've read my work, and so I meet them at weddings, and they're all very proud of me. So I've never had that problem. So. I think there was a question from someone here. Do you have any more questions, Rashmi?
Yeah, ma'am. We have kept last 20 minutes for the
Sure, sure.
audience questions.
Yeah, yeah.
So there is another
Yeah,
seven
please also
minutes.
do.
There is one more
Yeah.
question, like, who is your literacy inspiration?
So,
Who is your favorite writer?
okay.
Literacy inspirations.
So this it's not static. It keeps changing. Some years ago, it was Jodi Picoult. Some years ago, again a few years ago, it was J.K. Rowling. Currently, it's Stephen King. So this it
Okay.
keeps changing. As I also really like. So so not so much as inspiration, but that feeling that look at the great work that these writers are putting out there. I also want to be able to do that. So that's the feeling that I get when I read works by by Rick Riordan or Brandon Mull and all these. I'm a huge fan of young adult fantasy fiction. So so that way it's not so much as inspiration, but the kind of things I love to read, I'd like to write that also.
Okay. So you have mentioned in one of your interviews that mentor, there was one of your mentor who helped you. So how do you think that there is important to have a mentor before we start writing or at any stage of writing?
See, uh, so the mentor whom I mentioned earlier, she was the
Okay.
one who directed me to read those books. So whether you have a mentor or not, what you need to do is the great thing that she did for me was to introduce me to Indian writers. Before reading Indian fiction became, the fashion. Before you had people, before you had popular writers today who are, who are writing about back in the days in the early 2000s. So the it's not so much as having a mentor is important as having someone to tell you that you should read books. So a lot of people like to want to write, but no one wants to read, you know. So people
Yeah,
don't
that's
want to read, they all want to write. So every time I used to do my creative writing workshops, people would be all right to the whole day, they'd be fine. But towards the end of the day, when we had this publishing module where we would talk about publishing, how to approach a publisher, what to do, do's and don'ts. The most amount of interest we would see would be then. So people would want to know, and they would be taking notes. They'd be very interested in how to do this. So but you ask them what are the books that you like reading. Very few people would actually have been, would have read something. So I think, every mentor, if you don't need a mentor, is what I'm saying. Books can be your mentor. The kinds of books that you want to write, read more of that. Read books, read all sorts of books. So don't limit yourself. So people have this they've internalized shame in a way that, they feel that, oh, this is children's books, I can't read this, I am a grown up. No, there's nothing like that. Read all sorts of books. Read romance. If you're a boy and you're like, how will I read romance? Nothing of that sort. Read everything that you get hold of, and it will make you a better writer. So there's some really good stories out there in so many different genres. So don't limit yourself to genres. But I am saying this very grandly, but I hate reading non-fiction myself. So that's one thing I will not read. But I love reading fiction anytime, any day.
Okay. Okay. So there is last question from my side. The next will be part of audience.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of your writing?
My purpose of my writing, there is no moral, there is nothing of that sort. It's to entertain. It's to make people feel better about themselves. When they pick up my book, when they're reading this, they're like, for that 1 hour, 2 hours, I want them to forget about whatever crap is happening in the world, and lose themselves in the world that I created, and feel little good about themselves. So I don't have any higher illusions. I don't have anything that people should become better people after reading my books. I'm not that evolved myself. So I feel like, if people enjoy my they enjoy my work, if they if they learn something and all that, that's all incidental. Like just today I got a message from some reader who said that she sent me a message on Instagram saying that after reading your book Asmara Summer, I learned how to be okay with myself. So I was amazed, because that was not my intention. I wrote Asmara Summer because I was having fun writing it. But if people can get that lesson from it, then wonderful. So, but my purpose is to make sure that people are enjoying themselves. No one should read my books and say, "Oh God, how do I finish this book?" So that's basically it.
There is one more question, like the example which you gave. How do you react to the critics, good critics, bad critics, or
so
whatever?
the only way to react to good critics is to understand what they've said about your work and try and see how you can improve it, but also not to respond to anyone, whether they are good or bad. So I just, no matter what anyone says, I don't respond to anyone. I avoid going to Goodreads, because I feel Goodreads is a reader's space. I remember Joanne Harris saying this once, so I've kind of stuck to it. This is not my idea. This is something that she said, so I kind of just stuck to it, that Goodreads is a place for readers to talk about books. So writers should not be lurking there, to see what readers are saying about their books. So I've just like, since then I stopped looking at what people are saying about my books, because readers are very subjective, and sometimes what happens is that writers are very sensitive people. So if you happen to come across something where someone has torn your book and said that this is rubbish, I don't know why this author even writes, and I'm not going to take it to heart, because I'm not going to stop writing because some person somewhere said, why is she writing? She doesn't have to read. They don't have, no one's forcing them to read. I will still write, but I will feel bad. I will feel shitty for like 2 days. So why go through all that? So I just avoid reading it. Good reviews, of course. I'm very happy to see good reviews. I will share them. What I don't like is, when people write a bad review about my book, say on Instagram or Twitter, and then they will tag me there. Like, see, we read your book, we didn't like it, so please take a look at what we have said about your book. So I was like, no, don't do this to me. I'm also human. If you didn't like my book, fine, it's okay. You can tell your friends not to read my work, but don't tell me this is how you felt, because it's, after all, my book is like my baby, which I put out there to the world. It's taken hard work for me to come up with that. So it takes 1 minute for someone to cut me down. So I don't want to give people that thing. So I avoid reacting to people.
Okay. So we'll go for the audience question.
Yeah.
There is one question from Arbaz. Hello, ma'am. This is
Yeah, yeah,
Arbaz from
yeah,
You
yeah.
have it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So how did you get your ideas for the books and what are your views on manga and anime? So the second question first, manga and anime, I have no views on it. I would love to read it, but I find myself oddly restricted by, feeling like I have to really get into it because I feel like it requires that sort of commitment and I don't have that commitment. So I'm not against it or anything. I think it's amazing. People should read whatever they want and all that. How do I get my ideas is very subjective, because sometimes I get my ideas everywhere. So, the thing is to just keep your eyes open and you never know where an idea might become a book. So the ideas are come from varied places. If I were to tell you how I got ideas for each of my books, so we will need 2 more hours. So
Okay.
Arvind says, nice informative session. Thank you, Arvind. Shahnawaz Sagar says, Andaleeb, have you drawn upon your personal experiences to write the book? So I would say initially, yes. So when I started writing, I was doing this. I was taking a lot from my own personal experience. I would say maybe the first 2 books have a lot of about the way how I've taken my personal experience is the way I react to situations is more or less how my character would react to situations, you know.
Okay.
So, and a few characters were inspired, especially in my first book, a couple of my characters were inspired by relatives I knew, and everyone was like, how could you do this? No one recognized who it was except for a couple of aunts, like, whom they spotted. But after that, I think once I got the hang of it, I didn't need to rely on my personal experience. It's good to have all sorts of experience to be able to, write. Otherwise, your worldview is limited. So if you have a wider worldview, then you can write about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Shajil, what about Urdu literature? Can you write in Urdu? So, unfortunately, I can't write in Urdu, and I do read Urdu very, so my mother has to literally put a gun to my head to make me read Urdu because she reads Urdu and I know how to read Urdu. So I'm not saying this like, derogatorily because sadly what's happened is that I'm just too, I don't, again, like with manga and anime, I feel like I have to put a lot more of myself to decipher it and read it. So I must have read Urdu literature, as a teenager when I didn't have any access to books and my mother gave me this fat book and said, read it. But after that, I've never had the time. I don't have the time right now to read books in English also. So reading books in Urdu is very difficult. Writing, sadly, no.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, this
People
is
can
Imran
also use
Saudagar.
mic and camera to ask questions.
Pardon? Can you repeat?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was just suggesting everyone they can use their mic and camera to ask questions instead of chatting as well.
Okay. So, Andaleeb, you mentioned you used to write on Deccan Herald, and I am one of those readers. I was very young
Okay.
yeah, back in early 2000s, I guess, Open
Yes,
CSM and stuff.
yes.
And I used to look out, I used to wait every week to read one of your columns or one of your stories. And then as you kept on writing your books, and I followed your journey for many, many years. And until I think once in Bangalore Literary Festival or somewhere, I had attended one of your events. So this, you having talking to you here, it means a lot to me.
Thank
And
you so much. I'm sorry, I don't remember because I don't know. I do meet people and I'm very bad with names. So
no, it's
I'm
all right. I didn't personally meet you, but I had attended one of
oh,
your sessions. Yeah.
okay.
So my question is more towards writing and publishing on KDP.
Mm.
Yeah, I recently saw that you have been publishing more in Amazon direct publishing. So how different is it from traditional publishing? And second question that I have is, How much time does it take you to write now? You have written 25 books, and
So,
that's like in 10
um,
years.
to answer your first part of your question, uh, traditional publishing is very time it takes a lot of time. It's a big process. From the moment you sign a contract till the time the book comes out, it takes any time from 1 to 1.5 years. So if you don't want to wait that long, you know, self-publishing is the way to go. It's very easy. The thing with self-publishing is that you don't have anyone with you. I will just enter my, okay, where do I enter the chat? I think okay, so I'll just enter my newsletter address. So I have been writing a lot about self-publishing over there on KDP. So you can subscribe and you can read. Yeah. So you'll have a good idea of that, Imran. You should be able to understand. I've entered the newsletter address. So I've written a lot about how to self-publish there on KDP. Everything, whether it's a good choice for you, whether or not it's all there. So I have a long question here. So should I quickly read it out? So it's from yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Go ahead, Andaleeb.
okay. So I don't. Okay. So, Amar, so you are saying you have a hard time writing the middle parts of a story. So you want advice on how to write the middle parts of a story. So, one thing you do is next time before you write a story, uh, put it down somewhere. Put it down somewhere, as in the gist of the story. Okay, put down the basic bare bones of the story on a piece of paper, as in put it down in points, like this is my story, what's my story is going to be about, this is what happened, A meets B or whatever, and then so formulate your story. This I never used to do this. Okay, I never used to do this. I used to. So this is basically there are two types of writers. Uh, Actually, there are more because there are combinations. So you have plotters and you have what they call pantsers, because they are writing from the seat of their pants. Literally, they don't know what's happening until they sit down to write. So what you can do is I prefer putting down the plot of the story. So if you're writing a short story, the plot of your story should be like a paragraph or two, where you write down what is going to happen over here. So every time you get stuck in doing the middle parts, that's where you refer to this what you wrote, this short summary, and you can expand on it. So once you do that, you'll have stuff. I know what you're saying. I used to suffer from this a lot. So you have a good beginning, you know how it's going to end, but what about the actual meat of the story? What's going to come there? So you have to pack it with events, you have to pack it with characters doing things, their characters' journey, what when the story started, what your character was doing, and the journey that they went through, and what happened to them at the end of that journey. So that's basically your story. The middle part is actually the fun part now, because you are building your story, you're building your world. So, but all this becomes easier only when you write it down somewhere first. I hope that's answered your question, Amar. I think we don't have any more questions here. So, if anyone has any other questions, you all can ask me directly.
Well, I'm sorry, I am not a regular, I'm not a member. I'm just, first time visitor here. I wanted to give a chance to the regular audience to ask the question, but unless um, I have a lot of questions, but I don't know which one to prioritize because we are running out of time, I guess. What I was wondering was, how is it? I mean, you pick up your audience from your life, your interaction, your experience that you see in society. As a woman in India, where you are not exposed, you are not out in society so much interacting with a lot of people. How do you pick up your characters, your experiences, and is for is India and culture a limiting factor for a woman writer to gain, experience with the events and society at large? Is your experience going to be limiting? The society is going to be a limiting factor for your craft.
So thank you for asking this question, Tahsin. But this would have been a factor that would have worried me maybe 10, 15 years ago. Today, that's not the case. Today, the world is literally at our fingertips because of the internet. You can research, you can look up things, you can do whatever you want because of with the internet. So the internet takes you to places. So I've written about places I have never been to. I set an entire destination wedding story set in the Maldives. I have not been there. So, and people who've read it, they're like, but it looks so, it looks like as though I could feel everything. I said, yes, that's the power of writing a good story. So, so there is, that's what, 10, 15 years ago, this would have been impossible because we didn't have such, we didn't have this, the internet has made the world a smaller place. So also, I also feel that interactions in the world, however big or small, have shaped who I am. So I have, it's not like I have always been at home. I have never, called myself as a housewife or something. I've always been writing. I've worked as a technical writer, and in 2014 for 2 years and 2016 for 2 years I was working as a head of marketing of a software company. So so I have been out and about. I would say not really, not as much as maybe a lot of other people, but I don't think being a woman has limited anything in the way I write. We have a question here from the chat box.
Sorry for the interruption, ma'am. Tahsin Khatib sir is the son of Sulaiman Khatib.
Okay.
So thank you, sir, for being a part of this session.
No problem. And thanks, Andaleeb, for taking the question.
I hope I answered you adequately.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. That's how you get, and we get an insight into, how you can interact with society at large. And, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay. So Najma wants to know how to realize what readers really want in your writing. This is a tricky question. So if I were to sit and think that this is what my readers want, so I want to write about this, that's really going to mess with my flow. So I avoid thinking about that. I just try and focus about what I feel should be a part of the story, and it usually works. So I don't know whether that's a good way of going about it, but thinking about what readers want is a huge spectrum of readers out there. Some readers want me to write stories like More Than Just Biryani. Some people were upset about why I started writing romance. It's in the Jasmine Villa trilogy on Amazon. They were like, how can you write this stuff? I can't please everyone. I can only please myself and what I write and what I enjoy. So I don't think about what everyone is it's difficult to please everyone. So you're welcome. I hope that answered your question.
Why did you write in so many different genres? Why not stick to one? Because normally I've seen.
But why should I stick to one genre? I don't see. You don't just watch comedy. You will watch something.
Yes.
Sometimes you will watch drama. Sometimes you will watch horror if you feel like it. So it's the same with reading also. I mean, okay, reading is more, I would say, defined. You wouldn't read a certain genre at all. But when I'm writing, I feel like writers should never be limited to genre. They should never say that. First of all, who is stopping? Who is the gatekeeper? Who is telling me that I shouldn't write in this genre? Why shouldn't I write? It's like, so if it confuses my readers, eventually they'll figure it out. So that, I mean, thanks to the, if I've written a horror novel, my romance readers are not going to read it. It's okay. I'm okay with that. So my thing is that as long as I am able to write, I should write whatever I want to.
And how I mean, what do your audience say when you shift to one genre from other genre? Like recently, you have written a horror story, and then many years back, you had written a time travel story. So, do they take well? Do they stick around reading your books, or do you always have, new audience all the time?
See, it helps, no? So people who've never read my book, who if so, there are a lot of people who have this very disdainful attitude towards romance. They will say, "Oh, we will never read romance. No, it's rubbish." But if I've written horror and if they've read it and if they've liked what I've written, then there is always a chance of them coming back to see what I've written. So I don't really. So to be very honest, Imran, I don't think of it that much. I don't think that, but what about my readers? I rarely think about my readers when I'm writing. The only time I think about them is when my publisher sits down with me and says, "So, Andaleeb, you published a horror last year. Let's bring out a romance this year. We'll figure it out." That's the only time. Otherwise, I don't really bother. I find it very. I don't want to restrict myself, and I feel like eventually my readers will get it. So I haven't written that much of horror to actually have that thing. The science fiction that I wrote also had a very strong romance thread in it. It was young adult fiction. It had a very strong romance thread. So I think more or less people who enjoy these things will read. So
only one more question we can take up from the audience.
okay. So anything as writer's block exists? If so, how to cope with it? So a lot of people talk about writer's block. I prefer not to. I don't like to usually think of it as writer's block. I feel I, I I feel like that's giving it too much power. So I just like say I'm stuck. If I'm stuck in a certain thing, so there are two kinds of writer's block. When I'm teaching people, this is what I tell. So the thing that you call writer's block, there are two types of it. One is when you don't know how to move ahead in a story. You're stuck in a story. So for that, if you write the plot, like how I described to Amar before, if you describe your plot down, if you put it down, then you won't get stuck. You will know what comes next. The other kind of writer's block is when you don't know what to write. But if you keep your mind open for ideas everywhere, then you will know that ideas will come from here, from there, and you can always go back. You should always have a bank of ideas to fall back on. So I don't believe in writer's block. So I mean, I've never believed in it as such. So for me, it doesn't exist. I'm sure that there are very genuinely valid reasons for some people who are not able to write because something is stopping them from writing it or whatever. So I always advise them to take a break, do something else, go for a walk. Now, of course, everything is different. You can't go for a walk. I say you just can't step out of the house like that. But do something, bake a cake, something that's unrelated. So your mind kind of just gets reset. So
I have two last questions. One is, I am a wannabe writer. So any advice for that? How to write, how to finish, I have started writing a novel and it never finishes. I keep on writing and writing and writing, and then I keep on deleting that stuff. It's very easy to delete stuff on when I'm writing on my computer. And the second question is, has this lockdown affected your ability to write? I have seen a lot of writers who are, I've seen poles apart. Okay, some people are writing a lot and some people are depressed and kind of thing. So what is your experience in this lockdown period?
So, Imran, to answer your first question, if you write down the synopsis of your story, if you write down, like how I told you, write it down, then you will know where to bring your story to an end. You start off with characters, you start off with a story, with the events that are happening, and once you write it down somewhere, so take a little time and effort to write down a 2-pager about your book before you start writing pages and pages of it. So where this is for your eyes only as a writer, only you will look at it. Just something that what goes into this, what is going to go into the story, who are the characters, what are the main events here. Put it down. Don't write it stylistically. Just write it like a list, just write it down that this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to end. Once you do that, sometimes the end is not very clear. So leave that. But you come till at least, say, 3/4 of the book. Once you come there, as you keep on writing, it becomes clearer. So my advice is to keep writing, keep reading and keep writing, because those are the biggest tools that you will need to write successfully. And the pandemic has not affected my productivity. Alhamdulillah, I keep writing. I'm still writing. So I've always had this I have tunnel vision when it comes to writing. So when I'm writing, I'm just doing that. I tend to ignore the world at large, what's happening. And that's helped me stay focused. So that's me. Like you said, lots of other people are dealing with it differently. So,
thank you.
Okay. Hope your question is answered. Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving your time and taking this club name to another level. You're an inspiration for many of us. That was really an insightful session with you. Now I call upon Shagufta to give word of thanks for the ma'am.
Thank you, Rashmi. I hope everyone had got something interesting and insightful from the session.
Thank you, Andaleeb Wajid, for coming up here on a very short notice. Although I have had this vision to have you here since last year. Thank you so much for taking time out. I don't really have any words, I'm in utmost gratitude to just see you here on my screen, have you speak for us, our book club. Hope we get to see you again in the near future and to see you live on stage in Gulbarga here, inshallah. Hopefully. Thank you so much.